Hello everyone, this is Gizzy. I got a 2,500 point battle report. My Orcs and Goblins versus Lizardmen. Starting off my opponent's far right, he has 10 skink skirmishers with javelins. To the left of that, there is 11 Saurish cav here. And in that unit, tucked away in the far left-hand corner, is a BSB rocking a halberd, light armor, dragon helm, and a dawnstone. To the left of that unit, there is a salamander hunting pack, the fire-breathing type. To the left of that, there is 25, I want to say, Temple Guard here. Behind that unit, there is 20 or so skink, and in that unit is 2 Croxagore. Attached to that unit is a Slan Mage Priest with Becoming Cogitations, Harmonic Conversion, Focus of Mystery, and a Channeling Staff, so the potential to have some pretty beefy magic phases there with some Lore Master, and some potential to channel a metric crap ton of dice. To the left of the Temple Guard unit there is 30 Saurus, and in that unit is an Old Blood. He's rocking an Enchanted Shield, Light Armor, Sword of Might, and Talisman of Endurance. Behind that unit is a Skink Chief riding a Pterodon with Light Armor and a Shield, Stegodon Helm, and a Spear. To the left of that Saurus block, there is another Salamander Fire-Breathing Hunting Pack. To the left of that, there is 10 more Skink Skirmishers with Blowpipes. And rounding out his forces there, you can see that one little orange Lizzie, and that is those are skink. I think there's 5 or 6 skink chameleons in the house there. Starting off on my far left, I have 5 Goblin Wolf Riders. To the right of that is an Arachnarok Spider. To the right of that, there is 45 Orc Biggins. They're rocking the Razored Standard. And in that unit, I have a BSB with the armor of Silvered Steel, Luckstone, and a Great Weapon. Right next to him, cuddled up, is a Black Orc Warboss with a Talisman of Preservation, Crown of Command, Sword of Striking, and Enchanted Shield. Pretty basic. As far as on foot, he's pretty defensive with a bonus to hit, but he's just there to grant stubborn to that unit. In front of that unit, there is 2 Mangler Squigs. And to the right of that big block, there is 6 Trolls. Behind those Trolls is 20 Night Goblins, and in that unit is a level 4 with a Dispel Scroll. For spells, he rolled up Itchy Nuisance, Curse of the Bad Moon, Gorkle Fix-It, and Gift of the Spider Gods. So not a bad set for Goblin magic. A lot of Goblin magic is very situational, and this is not a bad set to have. The only thing I would rather have the Magic Missile as opposed to Gift of the Spider Gods. I really find that I don't use poison attacks all too much for this list. So other than that, I really can't complain. Itchy Nuisance is usually always useful, and Gorka Fix It just seems to screw up a lot of people's plans. So I'll take it. And to the right of that, there is on this giant hill here, there is a Goblin Doom Diver, and then there is 40 Black Orcs with no command whatsoever. Didn't have the points, so I skipped out on it. So hopefully that doesn't come to bite me in the butt later. And to the right of that, there is a second Goblin Doom Diver, and rounding up my forces here on the far right flank is 5 more Goblin Wolf Riders. So you can see there's a bit of my Vanguard move with my fast cab, but Lizardmen take turn 1, and he moves up like so. A little cautious with the cold 1 cab since they are parked in front of a forest. They have to choose to go one way or the other. And you see his center lines move up like so, and his Chameleon Skinks get out of the building to try and get in range of those Wolf Riders to try and plink them off the board. Magic phase, I pretty much was able to. He was out of range with a lot of the high direct damage spells, and I was able to dispel a few of the longer range ones, so not too much damage there. Actually, no damage whatsoever. Which leads to Orcs and Goblins turn 1. I take my fast cav and I snake him around between his 2 skink units here. Now, I know that doesn't do a whole hell of a lot because they just kind of free reform and shoot the hell out of him, but it does keep those skink units busy for a turn, hopefully. And my Arachnarok moves up like so. The charge range wasn't that juicy, so I decided to move up. So now I have a lot of options here. At least I'll be able to force a few reactions, probably some fleas. We'll see what happens. Next turn, my Mangler Squig walls through the woods to get some protection, some more cover from the skink skirmishers there in case he tries to pluck off my Mangler Squigs here. I'm out of the Mangler Squig, seeing how there's no ranged threats in the center of the board immediately, he decides to wander off into the middle to go after those big juicy Saurus blocks. And then my units here, my trolls and my big guns here just trundle behind my Mangler Squigs. And there you can see my Black Orcs move up to the forest line here. And you can see my vanguarded up wolf riders here move up in front of the salamander, and I do that really just to create a threat for him. He's going to probably flame him, maybe kill one, hopefully not kill two. Hopefully the flame will actually just bounce right over him, so that way I'll be able to charge in if he doesn't do something to deal with him, because I really want to prevent as many of my Black Orcs going down to a gout of flame as I can. That template has the potential to do some serious damage if it lands just right. And in the magic phase, I managed to sneak off Itchy Nuisance, and I put it on his Temple Guard unit to try and slow down his main lines here. Unfortunately, I rolled a -2 to his movement and initiative, so he can still move a little bit, but not as far as he probably would have liked. Then my Goblin Doob Divers over up on the obvious. For me, the obvious target was the X Factor in his army was this Saurus Cav. With a BSB and all those attacks, could potentially provide a serious punch to his army, especially if it gets on a flank of one of my ranked up units. So I decided to take, it being the most heavily armored target, and since Doom Divers take away armor, I figured it was the most viable target. So I aim both my Doom Divers at this Cold 1 unit here, and I take out 3 with each, which is pretty awesome. So that leaves only 5 Cold 1 and riders and a BSB, which was once a very serious threat, is now still a serious threat, but not nearly as much. So that leaves the Lizardmen turn 2. So he reforms his skink with blowpipes here to try and obliterate my wolf riders. His chameleon skinks move up to shoot some needles at the butt of the Arachnarok spider. He moves up with his flame salamander here, and his front lines move up like so. He reforms his javelin skinks here to try and pluck off some of those wolf riders, and his Saurus Cav here decides to take the long way around the forest and snake out beyond the side of my Black Orcs here. I probably could get a charge off here, but it would be way too long and too risky to go after them. And plus, that would take my Black Orcs way away from the center, and that's where the majority of his points are. So I really can't afford to chase down these cold ones with my Black Orcs. If I went after that unit, I'd probably get it, and if I did, that's the only unit it'd probably get all game. So I opt to ignore them and hope that my Doom Divers can pick up the slack. So his chameleon skinks here fire off and do a massive 3 wounds to my Arachnarok spider. At this point, I get pretty pissed off because I hate these things. Then his other skinks here fail to do the job. I figured with all his blowpipe shots, they should be able to take off 5 wolf riders, but they didn't. I have 1 left. And he does pass his panic test, believe it or not, even though he is a goblin. And over here, his javelin skinks here take off 3 of my wolf riders. And they do fail their panic test, and they flee straight through his lines here. And they pass all their dangerous terrain tests in doing so. And this salamander here, who has a prime time player shot straight through my Mangler Squig into my Orc Big Gun unit here. It's really anything you roll, you're going to hit a whole slew of them and potentially kill a lot of them, or at least devastate this unit, or it has the potential to. And he rolls the one thing he can't roll, which is a misfire, and he gobbles up 2 of his own crew. So I'm pretty happy about that. He had a juicy, shot here, and it just didn't work out for him. His other salamander spits a ball of fire here, and it only does 1 wound to the Black Orcs. Now, I did prematurely flee my... I wasn't supposed to take the test on the Wolf Riders here until the end of the shooting phase. So technically that salamander should shoot through the 2 Wolf Riders out right there. But I already resolved the flee, and that was a mistake on my behalf. But had that happened, it still wouldn't have flamed him because the template would have flew over their head. So that leads us to Orcs and Goblins turn 2. I take my Arachnarok and I attempt to charge the blowpipe skink that was shooting at my Wolf Riders. He elects to flee. Although I probably could catch him here, I decide it wasn't worth my time with Arachnarok. His efforts would be best served if you redirected towards the middle here. And so I redirect into a salamander. He elects to flee. His blowpipe skink only roll a 2 and end up where you see them, and his other salamander flees through his whole entire army there and ends up on the other side, and I promptly fail my charge. Then my Black Orcs here flee the Salamander that already fled through his whole entire lines, and it flees straight through his Temple Guard and his Skink Bunker with his Sland Mage Priest. I was just trying to merely force some tests here. Hopefully I'll get lucky and he'll turn and flee. But unfortunately nobody took the bait, and his lines remain intact, and my Black Orcs fail the charge and end up just barely in the woods here. The Mangler Squig here, the one that was in the middle that decided to go rogue there, just careens through his forces here, takes out 9 of his Temple Guard, which is pretty amazeballs, and then takes out 7 of his Skink Bunker, which is, I'll take it. It's free casualties. I think that the 9 Temple Guard was well worth the points of the Mangler Squig, so pretty happy about that. And the other one only needed about a 7 to contact into the Saurus, and it would have flew straight through his Saurus and then straight through his Sland Mage Priestess unit there, but there's just no room for it to land. So it would have popped right through the other side, but unfortunately I roll horrible, abysmal, terrible, absolutely dysfunctional, and I don't make it to his Saurus unit. So that was sad. And then to make matters worse, my trolls decide to be trolls, and they fail their rerollable leadership 9 stupidity test, and they trundle forward a good 5 inches, which pretty much they're just a big giant stick of beef jerky out there waiting to be triple charge, combo charge, whatever kind of charge you want, but there's 2 giant units in front of it, and these trolls just decide to sit around and pluck their own asses. And here, the 2 Wolf Riders continue to flee, and then my Goblin Doom Divers open up, and the first one takes out 5 of his Cold One, leaving just his BSB, and the other one takes a wound off the BSB. So the BSB is sitting on 1 wound, and his unit that he was once with, 11 strong, has now been completely expunged by the Doom Divers. That leads us to Lizardmen turn 3. He takes his Saurus unit and he charges into my Trolls. And he takes his Skink Chief, figuring he wasn't going to do much more than save valuable lives of the Temple Guard and the Saurus and whoever else he might be able to pop through. He sits his butt down on the top of the Mangler Squig here, and they both die in a glorious, spectacular fashion of death and blood and gore. So there goes that Mangler Squig. And as you can see, he redirects as many forces as he can to deal with the loose Mangler Squig in his back lines. He reforms his Javelins and Croxagore. He reforms his other unit of skirmishers here, and even his Salamander turns around to face in case the rest can't finish it off. He takes his Sland Mage Priest and he puts it into his Temple Guard unit here, and also his BSB, which is now alone on that side of the board. He takes it and moves it into his Temple Guard unit. So now he has his BSB and his caster in this Temple Guard unit. And his Skinks with blowpipes fail to rally, so they continue to flee off the board. His Orange Chameleon Skinks here decide to move up to harass the Arachnarch Spider even more so. In the magic phase, he goes for a huge roll on the Fiery Convocation. He throws 6 dice at, does not get Irresistible, and seeing as how I cannot afford to lose any Black Orcs outside of combat, I just promptly reveal my Dispel Scroll, and that was that. In the shooting phase, he takes all these units here and he throws a whole bunch of pointed sticks in the Mangler Squig, and he goes pop. And these Chameleon Skinks continue to do some damage on the Arachnarch Spider and take another wound from its existence. In the combat here, he rolls first because I'm initiative 1. I believe, yeah, Saurus is initiative 2, I believe. And he, even if it is initiative 1 with Simo, it didn't really matter here. And he does 5 wounds to me, and I kind of laugh it off, and I take my attacks, figuring I'm strength 5. I should be able to do some serious damage, and I just whop my roll, and I only do 3 wounds to him. And to add insult to injury, I flee, and he attempts to run me down, and he does so. In doing so, he rolls an 11 or a 12, and he gets out of the line of sight and the charge arc, more importantly, of my Orc Big Gun unit. So I was hoping my trolls would stick, and if they didn't stick, I was hoping he wouldn't roll too far in the overrun or the pursuit, and I'd be able to clip him and charge him the next turn, but he rolls a massive roll and gets out of my charge arc, so I have to spend a whole turn reforming to try and catch these Saurus warriors. That leads to my turn 3. I take my Ragnarok and I charge his Salamander there, and he attempts to flee, so I redirect successfully into his Skink and Crocs unit, and he elects to flee as well. And my Ragnarok fails its charge. Take my Black Orcs, and seeing how they serve no other purpose than combat, I take them into his Temple Guard unit. My Orc Big Gun units, my BSB, and my General just reform to face the rear of this Saurus unit, and my Goblin unit does the same here. My Goblin Wolf Riders here, too strong, actually successfully rally, and I just reform them. And in the magic phase, my wizard decides to eat a bad mushroom and pukes all over his own feet. One of my Doom Divers opens up and takes the other Salamander hunting pack off the board. And in the combat here, I figured I got 3 ranks. I'm hoarded here. I got great weapons. I should be able to eat face. And he goes and he takes out 11 of my number, which is pretty significant number of Black Orcs, a lot more than I expected to die, and then I haul off, and I roll as bad a roll as you could possibly roll, and I only kill 5 of the Temple Guard. So what I thought would be a mop-up here of the Temple Guard turned into DEFCON 3. Of course, I fail my leadership test because he absolutely want me, and fortunately for me, he failed to catch me, so I'm still alive and running. And that leads to Lizardmen turn 4. He attempts to charge and run me down. I flee and I get away. Thank you very much, dice. Had I been run down by the Lizardmen here, that would have been a pretty serious blow to my army. But unfortunately, the dice had it in for me, and I made this roll. So I was very happy about that. He fails his charge, and he ends up sitting in the middle there. And there you can see how wonky it is with this giant hill and my 2 Doom Divers as the Black Orcs try and charge back from which they came. And I had to make a nice dice tower in order to keep them standing straight up. His Skink with Blowpipe here managed to rally just what I need. More Skink on the board, as if I wasn't pissed off enough. Why couldn't they just stay off the board? And then he rallies or reforms here with his Skink units. He reforms with one and rallies with the other. The other one fled from the Ragnarok. And his Saurus unit here has no choice but just to reform here and face off against my Orc Big Gun unit. And in the magic phase, he gets off Hand of Glory. I think this was a boom in 12 dice magic phase for him with a lot of channels and stuff. So I have to let certain spells go and try to avoid some of his direct damage spells. So he gets off Hand of Glory, which is weapon skill and initiative on his Saurus here. Ooh, I'm not really scared. I mean, it's nice that he's got the +2 weapon skill, so now he's hitting me on 3s, but I don't really care as long as I'm still hitting him on 4s. And, yeah, I have so many numbers with that Orc Big Gun unit that I don't think it'll make too much of a difference. So, and then he also gets the Apotheosis here and heals the wound on his PSB. I dispelled a few of his direct damage spells or any important spells that he had coming my way. So Apotheosis is a small compromise here I had to give him. So his Chameleon Skinks decide that a juicier target is available, and they wipe off the Goblin Wolf Riders there to pick up some points, because they probably weren't going to take 4 wounds off the Ragnarok. But then again, knowing how those things have been rolling lately, they probably could have. That leads to Orcs and Goblins turn 4. I take my Ragnarok and I charge the rear of his Temple Guard unit, and he elects to flee, not wanting to take this charge in the rear. I don't know how that combat really would have fared. I would have got a Thunder Stomp, but then again, he easily probably could have peeled off with his back rank of Temple Guard. He might have been able to do those 4 wounds to the Ragnarok. So I don't know how that really... I don't know if I would have done the same. I might have stayed and absorbed that charge. But then again, it is his BSB, and it is his level 4. So I wasn't in that situation, so I can't really tell if that was wrong or right when it was kind of a hairy situation. But he elects to flee with his Temple Guard unit there, and I attempt to redirect, since that would have been way too far for me to catch as I would have imagined. I redirect into one of his Skink units, and this time he actually holds, which I'm quite excited about because I really want to pound the face of as many Skinks as I can. And then you can see a Wolf Rider moves up to get in the way, just in case something opens up where I can get him to flee again. He'll bounce out or something stupid. But there's really no role for that Wolf Rider. He can't pick up any of his harassing units because they have blowpipes and all that fancy stuff. So he's just out there trying to keep himself alive and away from javelins and blowpipes. I was managed to take my Orc horde here of big guns with my general and my BSB into his Saurus unit for some num fun, hopefully. And in the magic phase, I try to even off this Hand of Glory. I cast a Itchy Nuisance. Well, actually, let's start from the beginning here. I lowball Gift of the Spider Gods. It goes off. And then I roll on that sneaky stealing, whatever it is, thing, and I manage to steal one of his Dispel dice. So that now I'm rolling at this point. So then I cast Itchy Nuisance. I kind of lowball it, and he tries to catch it, I believe, but I get it off, and then I steal like one of his last few power dice, and I get Dispel dice, -5 to the movement and initiative of the Saurus. So which was once buffed Saurus, now it's just the initiative's gone straight down the toilet. And I steal another one of his dice, so that's awesome. So I take my dice right now. He has barely anything left. He might have one dice. I think I have 3 or 4. I just throw it at Golka, fix it. So now he's re-rolling all his 6s for hits, wounds, and armor saves. So this unit has been seriously debuffed. Then my Goblin Doom Diver here blows itself up. And I would like to say I got upset at this point, but after the damage that these things inflicted on the battlefield, I really can't feel too bad if one blows up. And by the grace of the gods, I managed to pass my rally test here with no musician or anything fancy like that. And I reformed my Black Orcs. So, on a leadership 8 without a reroll and without a musician, I was really fearing having to make that roll. But fortunately, I practiced my dice rolling before this game, and at least on leadership tests, and I managed to pull through there. That would have been horrible. Over here, the Arachnarch goes off and kills 8 of the Skink and puts 1 wound on this Kroxigor. The Kroxigor takes aim back and puts a nice chunk out of this Arachnarch, taking 1 wound off it. However, I win this combat handily. He flees, and I choose not to let any Skink unit possible ever live, and I run him down. In the combat here, I thought I was going to do a lot better than I did. He issues a challenge with his old blood. I just feed him my champ. I don't really care. I'd rather have my general and my BSB going into his unit. His old blood kicks the crap out of my champion with a wound of overkill. Then his rest of his Saurus go off and they kill 4 more Orcs. Not too bad. Now I'm strength 5. Look at all these attacks. My general, my BSB. He's re-rolling his armor saves to 6. How bad can this be? I think I'm going to put a huge dent in this unit, and I don't. I only kill 7 of these Saurus. What a horrible showing. Clearly, these Orcs weren't combat bound. Or meant for combat, I should say. And so I barely win this combat. But it was enough to tilt it in my favor. I end up passing my... he ends up failing his test, and I run him down. And that spells the end for the Lizardmen. My opponent concedes at this point with only his magic unit, and he's staring down the barrel of a Black Orc unit and this giant unit with my BSB and my general. He has a few Skink units along the board, but at this point, there's not much he can do. So some notes about this game. One thing that I really didn't hit on as this game went, he was getting some pretty good 12, 9, 10, 11 power dice magic phases along the way here. At least out of the 4 turns we had, 3 of them he hit at least 11. I think 2 of them hit 12 dice. I got insanely lucky with my dispel rolls, and a lot of it was letting some of the dumber spells go and just rolling insanely lucky to dispel some of the spells he did manage to get off. There were some times I rolled way too high than what I should have. So although you would think his magic phases would be a little more prolific, a lot of that was due to some insanely lucky dispel rolling on my behalf. And another big thing that really frustrated me in this game is with 2 combat units of Orcs. Granted, they're not Savage Orcs. Yeah, they're only Big-Ins with a Razor Standard, which is still pretty beefy. And the Black Orcs, just some pitiful combat showings. And even the Trolls at this point, there was some really, really bad rolls in combat. And I really... what should have been, marginal victories for me end up turning into big whops or failures. And it just really didn't make me feel too great about this Orc list. Whether it was my fault or the dice's fault, I just really wasn't too comfortable with the combats in this game as far as orcs. Orcs should be able, should be able to do a little more damage than what they did, especially the amount of units, not the units, the bodies and the units I had. The trolls, man, you know, you try and set up these nets where you have, rerollable, leadership 9 stupidity test, but in this game, like, how often do you really fail a leadership 9 rerollable? And in this game, it just happened to cost the trolls their lives. It's very rarely I see a stupidity play a part in a game. Usually, if you can keep your general alive and smart in smart situations, in which you should put yourself in, keeping your general shouldn't be too hard. Save for killing blow and crazy cascading combats and all that. If you can strategically position units to be in advantageous positions, you shouldn't really worry about your general too much, depending on his loadout and his role in the army. But when you have things like trolls and your Ragnarok Spider that need that leadership, you make sure that they stay in that bubble. And it was in that bubble, and my trolls just decided not to cooperate today, and it cost them their lives, and it saved the Saurus theirs, at least for a few turns anyways. So, not a good showing by the trolls today. The Doom Divers, definitely the A+++++ pluses of this effort. The one unit that truly shined. The Mangler Squigs is a close second because they did their job. They wreaked some pretty good devastation and pulled out one of his utility units and definitely caused a big ruckus in the center there. However, the Doom Divers definitely shine in this game. Taking out that Salamander was nice, but completely obliterating that Saurus Cav unit. I cringed to think of how many points that unit was, and it didn't even get a chance to swing. So Doom Divers definitely the A++. Magic phases for the Orcs and Goblins. The two magic phases I got off were pretty well. I got a spell off, and then the phase at the end there I did really well in. However, I did choke on a lot of mushrooms this game. In fact, both magic phases I didn't get anything off there. I did choke on some mushrooms pretty bad. One time it put a wound on me, the other time it didn't. But get that extra power dice per attempt is really nice. But that mushroom, if you do roll that one on that mushroom, it does kind of ruin your whole entire magic phase. So all in all, not a bad showing for the Goblin Shaman, even though he did, have a few bad phases. He did come through in the end there, so can't be too upset at him. And the Slan Channel thing, man, that can really swing some magic phases. There's a few of the Dispel times he didn't roll too well on channeling for Dispel dice, but just the potential to have a breakout magic phase with a Slan who can channel 3 times with a channeling staff is pretty monumental, and it's something definitely to look out for. I think one of the things, though, I think the high magic really isn't. It didn't really serve him too well in this situation. Soul Quench is nice, but he couldn't cast it early in the game because the range was too small, and then the Convocation cost too much. And then the Tempest there is all right, but I dispelled it. And then the other spells, the Hand of Glory, Weapon Skill Initiative, is nice. I just didn't really help him out too much in this game. Apotheosis, if he took a dinosaur or something like that, it'd be a lot more useful. I just don't think all in all that the high magic really shined in this matchup or was really useful at all. I think a Slan with a channeling stick and maybe, Shadow or something, or even Beast or Life or something would have panned out a little bit more and been a little bit more scary for me. But the high magic really, besides that Convocation, which could potentially kill a giant unit there, I really wasn't too scared of it. So, victory to the Orcs and Goblins, and thanks very much for sticking through.